Let us move further and discuss what evaporation is and how this evaporation differs from boiling. We know that when we place any liquid in a plate, after some time or few hours, we observe that this water evaporates or that liquid evaporates. It goes off into the atmosphere. We are not applying any heat to it. When we take our wet clothes and place in sunlight, we observe that they becomes dry. The drying of clothes is nothing but evaporation. You take a small drop of nail paint remover on your hand. We observe that it goes off into the atmosphere, and we observe finally that it changes, it gets evaporated. So basically we can say evaporation, it is a surface phenomena in which liquid changes into vapor at any temperature below its boiling point. So we can convert any liquid into vapor, or it is a natural phenomena, it takes place on its own. It is a surface phenomena. Surface phenomena means which takes place on the surface, where the liquid changes into vapors, and it takes place at any temperature below its boiling point. That means we are not boiling any liquid, still this liquid changes into vapor form. For example, drying of clothes. When we dry our wet clothes in sunlight or outside the room, we observe that it becomes dry easily. Why this is so? This is nothing but the process of evaporation, which takes place at all temperature. What are the factors that affects evaporation? So exposed surface area, increased temperature, humidity and wind speed. These four are the important factors. That means if you take some amount of water, equal amount of water in a plate or in a bowl, we observe that the evaporation is more in a plate. The water gets dry up quickly from that plate as compared to that in a bowl, because the surface area is more. When we talk about this activity, put 5 ml of water in a test tube and place it near a window or under a fan. Put 5 ml of water in open china dish, again place it near a window or under a fan. So you observe that when you place it in an open china dish, it gets evaporated faster as compared to that you have taken in test tube. You observe the temperature, you observe how many time, how many days, how many hours are required to evaporate that temperature, and you observe that in test tube it takes more hours as compared to that in china dish. So we can say that the rate of evaporation is more with more surface area. Now the thing is, if you increase the temperature, for one of the case taken 2 test tube, you increase the temperature, in one of the case you observe that evaporation becomes faster where the temperature is more. So we can say that increase in temperature also increases the rate of evaporation. You observe that your wet clothes will dry quickly in summer season as compared to winter season, because in summer season the temperature is more, and thus they can get dry easily. The water in that wet clothes get evaporate easily. Similarly, when we talk about wind speed, what will happen? If wind speed is more, again our clothes will dry up quickly. So this is another factor where we can say if the wind speed is more, the rate of evaporation will also be more. And one important factor is decrease in humidity. Humidity is nothing but the amount of water vapor in the atmosphere. If the water vapor is already there in the atmosphere, the water vapor will not pass from clothes to the atmosphere, because the atmosphere is having good number of water vapors into it. So if the humidity is more in the atmosphere, the evaporation will be slow. So for evaporation, these are the important factors. One is the increase in temperature, second is increase of surface area, third is high wind speed, and fourth is less humidity in atmosphere. All these factors are very, very important for the process of evaporation. Now, we know that evaporation is an endothermic process, and thus it causes cooling. What will happen? By absorbing energy from the surrounding particles, the liquid particles again get some energy. Whatever they have left during evaporation, they again gain some energy. That means during evaporation, they apply some energy, and thus in need they take some energy from the atmosphere. So once they take the energy from the atmosphere, thereby it lowers the temperature of the atmosphere, and the same process takes place in earthen pot, the matka what we are using to store water that gives us cold water. How it happens? We know that this matka is made up of sand particles which has some small pores on it. When we store some water into it, the water comes out through these pores, and this water on the pores of this surface of earthen pot, that is matka, starts evaporating. Once this water starts evaporating, it needs some energy. So in turn, it takes the energy from the water stored into it. Once it takes the energy from the water, water loses its energy, its temperature decreases, and thus we get cold water. And this is the process, and this is the science behind the matka, why it gives us cold water. So this is nothing but the evaporation which causes cooling. So another interesting factor behind this evaporation is the principle of cooler, the desert cooler what we are using, also based on this evaporation. Study this factor and the process, how this cooling takes place in desert cooler. Why do we get cool air in desert cooler? That is again based on evaporation. So we should wear cotton clothes in summer to keep cool and comfortable. We know that cotton is good absorber of water and it absorbs sweat to the most, and thus we can easily get the evaporation process more faster and will feel comfortable. When we pour some acetone or nail paint remover on our palm, it gets evaporate and we feel some cooling feeling. Why this cooling sensation on our palm? Because it is evaporation process and it takes heat from our hand, and thus we feel cool. Another important thing is people sprinkle water on the roof or open ground so that the large heat of vaporization of water helps to cool the hot surface. Once the water evaporates, it takes the heat of that roof, it takes the heat of that open ground so that it becomes cool. We see water droplets on the outer surface of glass that contains ice cold water. When you take out any water bottle from the refrigerator and keep it in a room, you observe that some water droplets on that water bottle is there. Why this is so? This is because the water vapors present in the atmosphere as humidity, they get condensed on this low temperature surface of this water bottle. So here the condensation takes place. This is not the water from inside bottle comes out. It has no pores into it. This water bottle is a closed vessel. It has no pores, so that water from inside comes out. The water droplets on the surface of this bottle comes from the surface, the surrounding in the form of humidity. And that is again, we can observe the water droplets. Nowadays, as I have told you that we have total 5 states, nowadays the scientists are talking of 5 states of matter: solid, liquid, gas, as we have discussed about these 3. 2 more, let us take a quick revision of these 2 and we'll wind up with this chapter: plasma and Bose-Einstein condensate. When we talk about plasma, what is this? These are the particles in the form of ionized gases, and nowadays we are using the fluorescent tube or plasma TV and neon sign bulb. They consist of this plasma. Suppose I am talking about any example of neon sign bulb. There is neon gas present into this fluorescent tube in the form of plasma state. So here we are having the plasma, that is the particles in the form of ionized gases. And last we have is Bose-Einstein condensate. We call it as BEC, the 5th state of matter. BEC is formed by cooling any gas of extremely low density, about 100,000 times the density of normal air. So just by cooling any gas at very low density, it changes to super low temperature and changes into a new state. We call it as Bose-Einstein condensate. So in all, now we are having total 5 physical states of matter: solid, liquid, gas, plasma and Bose-Einstein condensate. Try to find out the application of these 2 other states of matter, that is plasma and BC, and this is all about the chapter. Thank you so much.